Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight to the April 13th School Board Trustees meeting. If you would, please join me for a moment of reflection. Thank you. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Rins, would you read the guidelines for public comments?
Meetings of the Anderson Community Schools Board of Trustees are open to the public in accordance with the Indiana's Open Door Law. Prior to the board meeting, members of the public can sign up to provide public comment. During the public comment portion of the meeting, the president will call individuals signing up to the podium one at a time to speak. Speakers will be asked to state their name and address for the record prior to sharing their comments. Generally, each speaker shall not exceed 5 minutes to address the board and cannot give their minutes to anyone else. Public comments should be directed at the board and not individual board members. Shouting, loud statements, threats, name-calling, offensive language, or other improper conduct is not permitted. An employee speaking on matters involving his or her own individual employment matters will be reminded that ACSC has grievance and/or complaint procedures which have been designed and established to address those types of issues. Those processes provide a more thorough opportunity with greater time allocation in which board members are involved as a step in those processes. Comments concerning an individual employee's employment will be deferred to those processes. When appropriate, the board will refer questions to the superintendent. Some concerns may be addressed at that time. However, others may require further research to ensure the information provided is both accurate and complete. In those instances, the board or a member of the administration they designate will follow up with the individual sharing comment to ensure their questions or concern is properly addressed.
Thank you. With that, we'll officially call this meeting to order.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Board, you've received in your mailings and in your packet the agenda for tonight's meeting. I ask that you approve that without modification.
Motion would be in order.
Move to approve.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by nay? The ayes have it unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Also in your packet and in your mailings, you received the minutes from last month's board meeting. I ask that you approve those as well.
Motion would be in order.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion's been made.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. For my comments tonight, I only have several things from me and then a couple reports. If you'd like to look at the back of the boardroom, we have E2's first grade classes have provided artwork for tonight. So that's always special when we see that. You know, kind of some wildlife themes. Maybe they went to the zoo. I see some giraffes that I recognize from back here. Welcome back from spring break, everybody. Hopefully you all had a good trip and the weather was acceptable. If you were out of town, and if you were here, I think it snowed one day. So that's Indiana. First up, I'm going to call Mrs. Alexander to come up to the lectern here and give a report on the Anderson Education Foundation. And I won't even try to say what you're going to talk about because I don't know. It's going to be a surprise to us all.
Surprise, I'm good at that. First off, I just really wanted to point out we got to deliver grants this last month, so that was really fun. This is one of the grant recipients, Will Foster. He works at the high school. He actually designed, you can get a sneak peek at the yearbook cover this year. He designed it. You can't see it really well in the picture, but there's all these little graphics and images, and he's doing some really cool things with the yearbook. So if you've got a student in the high school, definitely order one. Go ahead. This is the total that we ended up a little bit under $15,000 for our impact grants. Impact grants are up to $3,000 grants that teachers can apply for. that is going to impact bigger than just their classroom, but like a whole grade or whole department. The picture there is from Highland Middle School. They got money for art stands, so they can, whenever they have art shows, they can clip their things on instead of trying to find a table to put them on, which is a little bit trickier. We also have one from Southview Preschool, which is for a sensory wall system. They're doing a really cool thing there where each day they're having like ride it, bounce it, so they have different themes for the different days. So I think that'll be kind of a fun thing to watch them develop. Lacey Helfers is doing a non-traditional art career exploration at the high school. Amber Guthrie is at Compass and is doing a life skills training. It was exciting because we haven't gotten a grant application from Compass in a while, so this was a really cool thing to get to grant them. The middle school also is doing one with Raspberry Pi devices, which is for coding. You can go ahead and, yep. Next up, this is Classroom Closet. Anybody who's in the school system knows that you can get classroom supplies and hygiene supplies at our Classroom Closet. It's in the back of the admin building. We moved this past summer to make it a lot more convenient for the teachers, but it also means that with the move and the online ordering, we've gotten a whole lot more orders this year than last. We're up to 233 orders, which is pretty incredible. In person, because they can still come to the office anytime to look through our supply, we had about 82 orders this year, but online we've had 151. So again, if anybody is in any organizations, I had a birthday party last month, and so I told everybody to bring markers and colored pencils and composition notebooks. So thank you to my friends who supplied that, but also Cultured Exchange Club is doing a drive. I know Community Hospital does one over the summer, so does Harrah's. So any supplies coming in, we will take them because they're out the door just as fast as they come in. Congratulations to the top 20 high school graduates. This is a cool thing that we get to do every year where we tell the top 20 graduates just how awesome they are, and also they get to invite an educator that's been influential to them from any of the school district to come in and kind of give back to them. So you can see there's two pictures from last year's. Up at the top, there's the group photo from last year. They get a yard sign, looks very similar to that, if not identical. This year, we did an orientation meeting for the kids, so they kind of knew what to expect. So down at the bottom, you'll see 4 of the students kind of getting excited about their celebration. So that is the list, and yeah, they get these fun plaques as well. So. Dine and donate. This is a new thing we're doing. Again, since we've been getting hit with a lot of orders, we're trying to raise more money. This is a big part of my job. We had several people show up and support this Panera night, Dine to Donate. We got $160 from that, which covers about 4 to 5 classroom closet orders, if you're curious. April 21st, we have Chick-fil-A. May 28th is Applebee's, and August 21st is Panda Express. So if you don't feel like cooking, please help us out, because it really does go to help, and it was kind of a nice excuse to not. I can't make dinner because I have to support the schools. So, and we'll be posting that stuff online as well. But they have special online code orders. Sometimes you have to show them the flyer. But Panera was awesome. We were at our meeting there, and they actually asked everybody who came in, "Hey, are you here for the Dine to Donate?" Which was kind of nice. So some people. If you're ever in there for anything, ask them what they're supporting, because you might actually help out without knowing it. Go ahead. Trivia night's coming up April 27th. Our winning team is on the left featured. You do get trophies as well as a fun prize package for the top 2 teams. But again, it's just a nice way to support what we're doing with AEF and have a great time with your community. A lot of the schools send teams in, but also the admins had a team before. My besties get a table. It's just fun. And you can get your $20 ticket down at the bottom there if you'd like. Go ahead. Classroom rummage sale. This is something new we're doing this year. One of our board members, who's also a teacher, suggested that it might be a cool way to not only raise money, but to help teachers in the district kind of spread around. How many teachers like getting rid of their stuff at the end of the year that they don't know what they want to do with? Anybody? Anybody's excited about that? No. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a rummage sale at E2 May 30th. So it's the day after the last day with the kids, and you can pay $20 for a booth, and then bring whatever you would like to offload to other teachers, new teachers coming in, or teachers who are changing to different grade levels can kind of look at what's available. So hopefully we can share the wealth, help people declutter things they don't need, but also raise some money for us. So we're excited about that kind of. I like doing things that have double duty, and that was a good one. So. Singing telegrams. Teacher Appreciation Week's coming up, guys, if you don't know. It's the first week of May, and last year we did singing telegrams to appreciate teachers. I went out with one of our show choir seniors who graduated and her mom, and we will be doing it for preschool up through Anderson Intermediate. The preschool teacher, principal Marissa, actually ordered singing telegrams for all of her teachers last year. It was really, really fun. This year, we are upping our game because I got some show choir students who are going to go around with me. I am not an amazing singer at all. I just don't mind being ridiculous. So they're excited to kind of come bring their talent to kind of really make it nice for you guys. So, Hall of Fame is our biggest fundraiser coming up October 23rd, which I did not put on the slide, and I should have. But the announcements will be coming in the next few weeks, as well as sponsorship information, so keep an eye out for that. I still plan on doing some fun surprises like we did last year because it was fun. So, it is Volunteer Appreciation Month, so if you are in any organization, say thank you. I'm really, really lucky to have a very good board. I put my quote up. My job is my second favorite, my people are my first. I'm really lucky to work with a great board who does a lot of hard work for little thanks and no money. So I just wanted to say thank you to guys, because Brad is he's our board president, and we have several other teachers and other people who are in the ACS, as well as people in the community, and I really appreciate that. And then just the last, by supporting AEF, you're supporting ACS. We have done a lot of things this year. You can kind of see a few of the pictures from some of the grants that got given out this year. There was a drumming grant over at Erskine. Brad and I actually got to go and sit in. They let us drum on the big bongos, which was really cool. Up on the top right, there's actually a needle felting art project that's going on from one of our grants this week over at Valley Grove. We've helped out with the robotics competitions. We've helped out with, the Marching Highlanders going to the parade. Esports team just finished up their season, and they were ranked pretty highly. We were able to help get them some computer equipment that they needed. So just, again, like, if you're in the school system and you need help, reach out to me, because I will do my best to try and figure out how to connect you with the resources. And if you are a person who knows of anybody who has any kind of money or resources, send them my way too, because it's all going right back to the school. So I think that's it. So, any questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, I'm going to call the Special Services crew up to the lectern to talk about special services. Over a year ago, we commissioned a voluntary audit of the Special Services Department, and that's something that we've done with multiple departments throughout the years, and it was Special Ed's turn, and so we did that. And I thought maybe it's time that we know what they're doing, but that the community really doesn't know the changes and some of the things that we've done and a lot of the good things that are going on in special services. So, crew, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Cronk, Dr. Hill, members of the board, members of the cabinet. I know we just came out of executive session. We had an opportunity to have a really good conversation about where we've been, where we're going, and what we're doing in terms of special education and special services here at Anderson Community Schools. So we've put together kind of a recap of everything that we just kind of went through over the last couple hours. And in doing so, we'll just kind of hit some of the wave tops to kind of outline what we're looking at doing here and what we've gotten accomplished as far as Anderson Community Schools is concerned. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Shay Bunnell. I'm the Director of Special Services, grades pre-K through 6 here at Anderson Community Schools. I also serve as the Transportation Director for Anderson Community Schools. And I'll pause here really quick to let my colleagues introduce themselves as well.
I am Bethany Seymour. I'm Director of Special Services. I'm covering grades 7 through adult.
And I'm Betsy Dugan. I'm the Assistant Director of Special Services, and I cover the areas of pre-K through 12.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started here. I've allocated myself 15 minutes, so I know exactly where we're at. If you give me my next slide, please, Brad. Again, to kind of give everybody a 10,000-foot view in terms of, from a pre-K-6 standpoint, this is kind of the current lay of the land in terms of where we're at regarding the special education programs and services that we provide in the district, as well as the buildings by which we provide them. So we'll go into a little bit greater detail here in a second, but this kind of gives you that layout as far as from a map perspective in terms of how we do special services in Anderson Community Schools. If you would, slide, please. What is special services here at Anderson Community Schools? And I'm going to have my colleagues here kind of provide some inputs as far as this slide is concerned. Bethany, you want to start with the first part?
Sure. So with special services, it not only incorporates students who have IEPs, and those are students who are identified as having special needs within our school buildings. It also serves students at our private schools within our community, providing them with service plans. We have approximately 1,500 students who have IEPs, and that's roughly 23% of our enrolled student body at ACS. We are also in the process, we have a little over 70 students currently in the evaluation process with our school psychologists, and as history would dictate, if the trend is accurate, over 90% of those 70 are anticipated to qualify as a student with disabilities under Article 7.
Also, under special services, we are the local liaison and point of contact for the McKinney-Vento students, and that provides support for our displaced or unhoused students, including transportation services, and also for students who have 504 plans. Currently, we have approximately 325 ACS students who are receiving services under McKinney-Vento, and approximately 140 students have a Section 504 plan. We are also the liaison for DCS, and whenever we have placements, foster student placements, regardless of whether they are eligible for special education, we make sure that they are provided that the services that they need while they're in foster care.
From a Medicaid standpoint, we also have several staff members that have some specific certifications that allow them to not only provide services to our students with special needs, but based on that certification, we're also then able to collect some reimbursement dollars through Medicaid for providing those services. And so those are typically your speech language pathologist, your occupational therapist, your physical therapist, as well as your school psychs. Where we have also found some additional funding streams in as well is when we're providing transportation services for students with special needs, that also becomes a reimbursable expense through Medicaid. So where we kind of land from a financial perspective is from last year, with all of those all in, as you get to looking at all those services that are provided with that certification, we've been able to reimburse the district approximately $472,000 as a result of that billing through Medicaid and working with ClaimAid, who is our Medicaid partner in terms of that billing process. What is not included in there, though, from this year, as far as these numbers, is the steps that we've taken to now build the transportation billing into our Medicaid reimbursement plan. For everyone's kind of situational awareness, from a transportation standpoint, we spend approximately $6.5 million a year to transport both general education and students with special needs throughout the district. Of that $6.5 million, approximately $2.75 million is used to specifically transport students with special needs. And so our plan this year is, as we start to refine our process in terms of the documenting and the logging and subsequently the submission for reimbursement of those Medicaid dollars, what we're looking at doing is eventually kind of getting a net zero in terms of the dollars that we spend to transport students with special needs and the Medicaid reimbursement that we would get. This year, our goal, since we've just now implemented doing it from a transportation standpoint, if we can find that we can recoup and reimburse approximately $1.5 million of that 2.75 million, I would say that we're off to a pretty good start in terms of our processes are concerned. And then, like I made mention of, continuing to refine those processes as we move forward in future years. Additionally, one of the things I wanted to add is that when we talk about numbers, we transport a little over 600 students with special needs this year alone in terms of from school to school and getting various supports throughout the district. And we're able to do all these things that you see here as far as the slides are concerned with a very lean staff at the district level. You'll find that there's 2 directors, there's Bethany and myself that oversee, pre-K through 12. Betsy Dugan, who does an excellent job as an assistant director in helping to facilitate special education services in the district, as well as Shelley Geisinger and Debbie Love, who are our full-time secretaries who do a great job at what they do, as well as the 5 support staff professionals that we now have in place that we will start to implement going into next school year to provide some of that additional assistance and support for our elementary buildings. So, next slide, if you would, please. Go ahead, Bethany.
So when we're talking about students with disabilities, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act has outlined 13 categories by which students can be found eligible. This is a breakdown of the 13 eligibilities. Of those 13, we have 2 deaf-blind and also severe intellectual disability, of which we do not have any students being serviced under those categories. The numbers in the red will indicate what numbers are being represented by our current students.
Okay, so at this point, that kind of gives us a very broad overview as far as special services at ACS is concerned. Now we'll kind of get into the meat and potatoes as far as what we discovered from the results of the audit, and then subsequently what we as a district level and building level staffs have done to address some of those challenges, those concerns, those opportunities for growth in the audit. So what we'll start with is the task and purpose. Why did we conduct the audit? Well, this is an opportunity for us to take an objective third-party approach to how it is that we provide special services here at Anderson Community Schools. What we are responsible for, in accordance with Article 7 and IDEA, is providing students a free and appropriate public education while placing them in what's known as their LRE, which is their least restrictive environment. Where can they maximize their learning time and still receive accommodations and services as a student with a disability? Additionally, you will see the 4 bullet points there underneath where not only are we responsible for FAPE and their students' individual LRE, but all of these things, the 4 bullet points that you see there are in accordance with what is outlined in Article 7, providing it at public expense as far as the public agency providing that funding for those services, meeting state standards, both academic as well as procedural standards outlined in Article 7, including preschool through the 22nd birthday as far as all that continuum of services is concerned for all of our students, and then making sure that the services that we are provided are conforming with each individual student's individualized education plan, or IEP.
So now that Shay has shared with you why the audit was conducted, let's get into how the audit was conducted. So it was a twofold. First, a portion of the audit process included interviews with a variety of staff members across Anderson Community School Corporation. The auditor scheduled time within multiple school buildings to conduct either one-on-one or small group forums to get feedback from staff at various levels. So we had administrators, special ed teachers, paraprofessionals, case coordinators, all the way through that list of interviews that were conducted. The second prong were documents. So these are some of the documents that were looked at. The auditor looked at over 260 IEPs to check for compliance. She did 11 building visits. She looked at some of our results-driven accountability reviews, our IEP reviews, and so forth. So she looked through a lot of documents and interviewed a lot of staff as she was conducting this interview, or this audit.
So I want to kind of highlight some of the things that the auditor did point out that we as a department were doing well. And the first had to do with staffing and our ability to staff and retain some of our difficult to acquire positions. That includes our speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and school psychologists. We currently do have 5 contracted positions. 3 of those are from an outside agency and 2 are retirees, and all 5 have signed contracts to come back for the next school year. The layers of support that are offered within the district. So from the building level, obviously we have our classroom teachers and our building administrators, but beyond that, at AIS, Highland Middle School and Anderson High School, we have what are called admin designees, and they are basically the in-house person in each of those schools to handle all matters related to special education. They can be the public agency representative for case conferences. They provide direct support to staff and students as needed. They help enroll students, so they're sort of the face of special ed in each building. We also, as was mentioned before, we have our support staff and special ed case coordinator, which going into next school year, we are fully staffed with those positions. Another layer of support were the resource staff meetings, which this year, what we have kind of done with those, every quarter we've done town hall meetings with each building. So we are getting ready to prepare for our 4th one coming up for the last 9 weeks. Once a month, we host what are called mentoring moments. That is when we bring our special education staff in, and we pay them a stipend to attend, where we do some professional development and provide some one-on-one assistance with IEPs if they so wish. We also have a monthly staff newsletter that goes out to all of the special education staff and administrators, and it just provides updates on the department, important dates, trainings that are coming up, that sort of thing. And then our family involvement. Last year, I believe they did quarterly family nights. We've had one this year. They haven't been as well attended as we would have liked, but I think next year, going into next year, we're looking at some different possibilities to do to try to increase our presence in the community and get to know our families a little bit better. The third point, movement of mild interventions, classrooms to home schools of record. And so each building has the resource classrooms, and now each building also has what we call our cross-categorical classrooms. And this is important because that allows our students to attend what we'd call our neighborhood school, perhaps with their siblings and with their peers. So that's been a positive for us. And then the last one, the MTSS process. And while MTSS is not a direct special education initiative, it does involve us at some point. If you don't know what MTSS is, it stands for Multi-Tier Systems of Supports. It's a data-driven, tiered system of interventions that promotes better student outcomes. And throughout the audit, it was mentioned that Eastside Elementary. Okay. Okay. Eastside Elementary was noted as being an exemplar model of how the framework is being utilized in the district.
Okay, so one of the areas where we have a chance to go from good to great in terms of how we're implementing special education services at Anderson Community Schools. A large chunk of the audit had indicated kind of what our communication processes look like. See here is kind of what each level of communication would be, whether it's from the district to the building to the classroom, what have you. Some of the things that we've been able to implement in terms of addressing the communication piece is that first part is that better level of communication from the district level to the classroom and through the building levels by letting teachers and building administrators know when students fall underneath the 50-day timeline as far as the suspected eligibility and the evaluation process is concerned. One of the other things that we've also done is terms of with our 5th graders, and when we have some high-need 5th graders that are also students with disabilities and part of our special education program, is letting our AIS staff, knowing that these kiddos are getting ready to go into 6th grade, kind of being proactive in terms of what their needs will look like going into next school year as 6th graders, and starting to schedule what we call those transition conferences sooner rather than later. And really what that is that is a coordination of effort in terms of those 5th grade teachers and those 6th grade teachers doing kind of what I call a battle handoff, so to speak, in terms of that kid coming in, hey, this is what we've experienced the last 5 years with this kiddo in the building at the elementary level. Here's what we would predict as far as the success of the student is concerned going into the 6th grade level and going into the intermediate school. And so we've been able to create that Google map that allows us to coordinate and sync those types of meetings together. Additionally, where we've also added a Google Calendar is the support staff that we've made mention of. In the instance that support staff is needed at any one of the elementaries or at the intermediate school, that calendar is accessible to all of our special education staff as well as our administrators, so that they can specifically request a date, time, and place for when they would like a support staff personnel to be made available so that they can utilize that support staff folks to provide that servicing. And then, as my colleagues have also made mention of, that communication, we've done town hall meetings in each of the 9 weeks with each of our elementaries as well as with our intermediate school, and we're in the process of then scheduling our town hall meetings for the 4th 9 weeks as well. Some of the other areas that we've seen as far as opportunities of growth, I know that Bethany had touched on it, looking at what our results-driven accountability looks like. And really what this is saying is we need to take advantage of those opportunities to maximize kids' exposures into the general education curriculum as well as the general education instruction. That being said, one of the areas that we found to be a challenge when we're talking about a student's least restrictive environment, we're finding a lot of kids that might have what is classified as a mild cognitive disability or mild intellectual disability. They're being placed in self-contained classrooms where by doing so, they're limiting their exposure to that general education curriculum and the general education instruction. Additionally, we were finding that kiddos, and these are probably our younger kiddos in some of the younger grades, being identified as a student with a developmental delay or other health impairment, also finding that they are being placed in self-contained classrooms. Where we have some opportunity, and I'll get into it here in a second, is those students that have what we call high incident disabilities. There's also greater opportunity for us to increase their exposure to the general education curriculum and instruction as well. Is this your slide or is this? Okay, cool.
So another opportunity of growth has to do with progress monitoring, and Article 7 says that students who have goals written into their IEPs should have quarterly progress monitoring completed. And it was found that some of our related services, such as OTs, PTs, and speech therapists, were not completing that progress monitoring on a quarterly basis. So we are providing training and professional development so that they know that their timelines are the same as for all students when report cards come out. So anytime a report card comes out, students with an IEP should have progress monitoring as well. The second point, delivery of service, both special education and general education teachers identified delays in the delay of service, especially at the beginning of the year. Sometimes it takes a little time to get those services in place. That especially happens when you have speech therapists who have to work around the music teacher, the art teacher, who has to work around everybody's lunch, everybody's recess. So it takes a little time to get those services started. But as Shay mentioned, we are working on those transition conferences, so hopefully the delivery of service will be a seamless process this year. The third point, the compliance concerns. Indiana Article 7 outlines exactly who needs to be present at every IEP meeting, and one of those components was consistently being missed as a result of these audit reports. And it was found that general education teachers were not being present at those meetings. They were often being excluded, and they can be excused from the conference, but it's not best practice. If students are participating in the general education curriculum and in the general education classroom, that general education teacher should have representation at that conference. They know that student, they know what that curriculum at the grade level should look like. So we are increasing the presence of the gen ed teachers for our resource students, as well as what we call our crosscat, who are our self-contained students, getting more of the general education teachers' input and participation in that meeting.
Okay, so as a result of the audit, and as we discussed in executive session, here's kind of a recap and some of the initial guidance that your building level administrators have received from us. I'll talk here really quick, and a lot of it is timelines, timelines, timelines. Where we have an opportunity to really kind of improve our processes is kind of what I call tightening up our shot group in terms of, hey, when we have compliance timelines, we have to meet, and that goes back to where we like to say, you have to inspect what you expect. And this is where we've really kind of empowered our building administrators from a boots-on-ground perspective in terms of, hey, I'm needing you to actively engage with your special education staff and provide some of that guidance and directions and make sure that they're hitting all of their marks so that we can then figure out what we need to do to best service and provide support to those teachers so that they in turn can also provide service to their kiddos. You can see here where I've highlighted some things that we've been doing. We also have some training lined up here at the end of June to help assist our resource, CrossCat, and all of our special education teachers with a little bit more training in terms of what the compliance timelines look like. Additionally, where we've also provided some support to the buildings is assisting in the hiring of some of that special education staff. TORs, teachers of record at the building level, your building admin teacher or your building admin staff have a little bit more empowerment this year in terms of who they're wanting to bring in as far as teachers of record are concerned, and knowing that the district level staff is going to be more responsible for hiring some of those district level personnel as far as SLPs, OTs, PTs, school psychs, things of that nature. And then also providing some additional guidance as we get into evaluation season, which is kind of where we're at right now, helping the building administrators and supporting them in terms of, are your special education teachers doing everything that special education teachers are supposed to do, and assisting with them from the professionalism component as far as those evaluations. I think so, yeah.
All right, so the goal is for our building level administrators to oversee special ed compliance within their own buildings. As far as case conferences go, those administrators can serve as the public agency representative if needed. We also have our case conference coordinator and our support staff available to assist with that, which again mentioned that we are fully staffed for that next school year. And then they will also assist with following up on some of those procedural compliance issues. As mentioned, with the facilitating the general education teacher attendance, they will assist with that. Bethany created a video on the Loom platform for our building administrators to learn how to download a compliance report on a regular basis regarding those IEP timelines to make sure that those are being met. And anytime there may be a complicated case conference where there are multiple issues to be discussed, it can either be reconvened with one of us involved as par, or ahead of time we can be scheduled to attend. Anytime that we are looking at possibly placing a student in a different program, in a different building, the procedure is going to be that those individuals from both buildings will attend the case conference if a change of placement is to be discussed, so that all parties are on the same page and that relevant information is shared. And then the last point is that this is just going to stress the collaborative nature of our case conference committee decisions, that they will make those determinations, and if there are any issues, Shay, Bethany, or myself will be notified, and if it needs to be reconvened and we are involved, then that's what we'll do.
Okay, so I will then go through these next slides relatively quick, because obviously they're still under development, as we made mention of. But what the next steps will outline is kind of like what our programs will look like going in, where they're at this year, and then what they will kind of look like in terms of going into next year. So what we start with is we look at our number one. I'll start at the bottom here as far as our bottom point, because that's the big takeaway from this slide, is making sure that our special education programs are allowing the student's need to drive the servicing, not the student's identified disability. So that means that we're creating that continuum of services and saying that just because you have this identified or suspected disability, this is what your LRE has to look like, no questions asked. We're allowing the reconfiguration, the rebranding, the reestablishing of criteria in and out of these programs so that we can better serve those kids. So this is kind of what we look at from a rebranding standpoint, is moving away from, identifying classrooms from a doctrinal standpoint as outlined in Article 7 by a disability, or also identifying classrooms that might be tied to a teacher's licensure. And so that CrossCat classroom is a good example as to where CrossCat is outlined in Article 7 in terms of applying to students with just an intellectual disability. By rebranding our classrooms, we're kind of broadening that so that we can best provide the service based on the need rather than the actual identified disability per se. So what we'll look at is identifying our cross-cat rooms as direct learning support classrooms, our resource classrooms, resource education support classrooms. Eastside Elementary is going to be kind of where we make one of our operational adjustments in terms of beefing up our ACEs, our academic communication and education support programs with our existing classroom, which is a K through configuration, adding a 3-5 configuration for those kiddos that are also attending that ACEs classroom, so that there's kind of a continuity of service for those kiddos that need that most support. This also affords them the opportunity to remain in one elementary school building during the course of their entire elementary school career and not have to try to work around the challenge of, now I also have to move different buildings as well as different classrooms because I've now, quote, graduated out of a program. Additionally, what we would be looking at doing is by adding to those programs at Eastside, we would then in turn be looking at moving our functional skills or our independent learning support classrooms back to Erskine, where they were just a couple years ago. And I'll touch on that more here in just a second. But what you would find in terms of configuration, Edgewood Elementary would remain a direct learning support classroom, a resource education support classroom. Erskine is where we would then go from 5 classrooms down to 4, because we were able to do kind of some combat math to figure out exactly what that would look like in terms of leveling all of our classrooms. And we're able to still offer 4 fully functional skills classrooms or independent learning support classrooms at Erskine and still provide some pretty top-notch servicing to those kiddos that would qualify and meet the criteria for being in those rooms. Moving away from what we would call an ABA classroom, because that falls more into the ACES configuration that we made mention of as far as E2 is concerned, yet still providing 2 resource education support classrooms out at Erskine. 10th Street, again, would also, and maintaining the concept that we had with our kiddos with intellectual disabilities and others that may qualify under the criteria, is affording them the opportunity to attend their neighborhood schools based on the need that they have as students rather than their disability. So 10th Street would still have a direct learning support classrooms. They would still have resource education support classrooms. Valley Grove, again, is kind of under development. It's our wild card right now because we're looking at bringing in a really great administrative team, and based on what our capabilities look like with our administrative teams, determining whether our, as we refer to them, intense intervention classrooms right now being behavior and education support classrooms, and figuring out what is the best place to provide the maximum amount of services for those high-need kids in terms of what building are they in. So one of the areas that we're entertaining is keeping it at Valley Grove, moving it to Anderson Intermediate, moving it to Compass. It all kind of depends on where we would be looking at moving those. But here you'd also see where Anderson Intermediate, again, they being a single configuration or a single cohort building, they have a full spectrum of services that we are providing to students with disabilities. And then you see there with our Compass Day School program for our kiddos that are grades 3 through 5 and 6 through 8. And then our ACS preschool program where we have Southview, which kind of serves as our developmental preschool for those kids that may be identified with a developmental delay. And then our Eastview kids, where our 4-year-olds that they are ready to go into the general education setting as kindergartners next year, that's where they're currently attending. So again, here's kind of a recap in terms of the map that I showed you the first time. As we get to doing the rebranding, the reconfiguring, this is kind of a 10,000-foot view of what our projected array of services would look like in terms of the district. And again, there's a lot of things that are still under development. Nothing's really set in stone just yet, so there'll be more to follow from that standpoint. So pending questions from the board or cabinet, that concludes our part of the presentation.
Board, is there any questions, comments? All right, thank you.
Oh, I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
Special ed isn't my specialty on the board, but I have a lot of friends, colleagues who are in the special ed department as teachers or other support staff, and they have been very complimentary on the work that you 3 have done to really address some of the issues that the consultant brought out, and they were very thankful, and they're looking forward to continued progress. So I just wanted to say thank you for what you've done. I do have one question for you. There was something in the report that I didn't understand that said something about a day school.
Yes, ma'am.
What is that?
Yeah, so I would like to first address, and I appreciate the compliment, and I appreciate the kudos, and I would like to pass that kudos and compliment along to our building level administrators as well as our classroom teachers. They are the secret to the success of our kids with disabilities, and gen ed kids as well. They do 99% of all of the hard work and effort and heavy lifting, and so I want to pass that kudos along to them as well, Ms. Collette, because they are the ones that we're
Make it
kind of,
happen.
yeah, we're the good idea committee, so to speak, but they are the ones that provide us a lot of really solid constructive feedback, and then in turn, they get very excited when we're able to convert that constructive feedback into action. And then that then makes a very positive impact, hopefully, in their classrooms. And I get excited about that level of collaboration, because our classroom instructors, our classroom teachers, especially in the areas of special services, they do a phenomenal job.
Yes,
and I can't compliment them enough in terms of how the school year has been, in terms of the success that we have found for a lot of our high-need kiddos. That being said, as far as our day school is concerned, I can probably kind of segue into it, and then I have my colleagues here that probably are greater subject matter experts in terms of answering that. But what I will start with kind of the end state, and one of the areas that we were looking at doing is trying to maximize the servicing that we were being provided as far as a therapeutic day school, but at the same time finding a more cost-effective manner by which providing those services. We still have a great relationship with the Anderson Center as far as their day school is concerned, but in providing our own day school, we're able to provide a little bit greater customization in terms of what that servicing looks like for our kiddos, and we're able to kind of maximize the taxpayer dollar in terms of doing that. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Bethany because she kind of knows more about the ins and outs and the details of it. So anything you'd like to add?
I would just like to say that the implementation of our day school program offers a wider continuum of services for our students before we have to look at outside placements. We do have some students that we do have to bus out just because we don't have the capabilities of meeting maybe their mental health needs, or we have students at the blind school and the deaf school that we can't service their needs here, and that is what the Anderson Center provides for us. But we wanted to provide another layer in between us and the Anderson Center just to see if we can have our own programming here. It is in its first year, and we are still building as the year progresses, but we are very hopeful that we can provide more services for our students through that continuum.
Thank you.
Pending your questions, that's all we have.
Thank you all. Dr. Hill, that concludes superintendent's comments.
There was Tammy stood up to.
This is not the public comment session of Ms. Dixon, Tatum, sorry.
I have a question just with regards to what they just said. Do I wait until?
Yes, please. And
Okay.
you can petition the board to speak during the public comment section, which is
Okay.
coming up shortly. Obviously, Ms. Webb, President Webb, is not here with us tonight. The board sends their wishes for a quick and speedy recovery as she is ill. So with that, we will move on to public comments. First up on the list, Ms. Burks, Ms. Johnson, Ms. Campbell, Ms. Smith, and Ms. Barnes. As you speak, if you would provide your name and try to stay within the 5 minutes.
My name is Natasha Burks.
Avriel Johnson.
Sharday Smith. Okay, we're going to just come with a recap. So, good evening, board members, stakeholders of the community, educators, and parents. On March 9th, 2026, we addressed the board regarding concerns impacting the Black and Brown students within Anderson Community Schools, and we requested a public forum to discuss these issues. Following that request, we met with Mr. Scheimer and Mrs. Mandy Webb in good faith to engage in a collaborative conversation. Our goal was to better understand the district's discipline matrix and the use of the probationary continued education agreements, which are the PCEAs. So we believe that the PCEAs should be reserved for serious safety concerns, using them in lower level or nonviolent situations, which raises concerns about fairness or whether consequences truly match the behaviors that were provided. We also believe that the discipline for students in grades 6 through 8 must be age appropriate. Middle school students are still developing socially and emotionally, and the expectation should reflect that. Additionally, many students are navigating high levels of trauma. Because of this, it is critical that teachers and staff consistently use trauma-informed practices such as TBRI, along with de-escalation strategies and cultural competency. We believe that every referral should clearly document what interventions were used before disciplinary escalation. Before a student faces suspension or expulsion, there should be a clear system of checks and balances to ensure all supports have been used. We appreciated the opportunity to meet on March 31st, and we look forward to a follow-up meeting soon. We also hope to identify a time that allows more board members to join, as we truly value your presence and your input. We as parents choose to use this venue to inform the board and the parents, as well as the community, of hopeful progress that is being made. We intend to totally be transparent throughout this process.
So at this time, we would like to share key takeaways from the meeting that are critical to move forward. PCEA concerns. Parents believe that the PCEA's process removes due process rights and is being applied in situations that do not involve serious safety concerns. We believe PCEAs should be reserved for serious offenses that pose clear risk to safety. Parents are requesting removal of existing PCEAs from student records, greater transparency regarding long-term impacts, including student records and eligibility for opportunities such as obtaining driver's license. There are also concerns about the language used in referrals in PCEA's documentation. Terms such as defiant, aggressive, disrespectful are often vague and subjective. Parents are requesting clear, objective descriptions of behavior to reduce misinterpretation and potential implicit biases.
The discipline matrix concerns. One of our most urgent concerns is the discipline matrix. Parents believe the current system is not age appropriate for students in grades 6 through 8. Middle school students are still developing socially, emotionally, and physically. Research shows that behavior at this stage is influenced by brain development, puberty, stress, and trauma, the need for breaks, as well as emotional regulation. However, the current system does not appear to fully account for these developmental factors. Parents are requesting a revised research-based approach that is age-appropriate, that reflects student development, that focuses on addressing root causes of behavior, not just punishment. When discipline does not align with development, it leads to increased behavioral issues, missed instructional time, and negative impacts on overall student success.
Staff training and student support. Parents recognize that teachers are managing complex classrooms and multiple students' needs. However, continued training is essential to ensure students are supported effectively. Parents are requesting ongoing training in de-escalation strategies, trauma-informed care practices such as TBRI, positive behavior supports, the multi-tiered system and supports, implicit bias and appropriate documentation practices. Students should be given the opportunity to process their behaviors, learn from mistakes, develop skills in a supportive environment. Before a referral leads to suspension or expulsion, there must be a clear system of checks and balances to ensure all appropriate interventions have been used. Each referral should clearly document What strategies were used? What supports were offered? What steps were taken prior to escalation? Data transparency and accountability. Parents are requesting greater transparency and accountability in the discipline process. Specifically, a review of teacher referral patterns, access to discipline data broken down by race, gender, and types of offenses, tracking students' pathways, including transitions from alternatives, campus, or online settings. This information is critical to ensure discipline is applied fairly, consistently across all students. Parent involvement. Parent wants to be a part of the solution. We want to be a part of the solution.
We are requesting opportunities to participate in district committees such as Parent Compact or PL 221, access to relevant agreements, policies, and processes to better support our children and partner with the district, assistance with securing IEP testing and 504 information needs. ACS administration has agreed to ensure the appropriate staff provide prompt assistance to Ms. L in initiating the process for enrolling her son in a 504 IEP plan per Bethany/Sarah. Additionally, Ms. N is currently awaiting support for some of her son's teachers to complete necessary documentation required to move forth with a mental health evaluation. Ms. N has already submitted a signed release of information form.
Ms. N was further advised by Mr. Fab, principal of AIS, would be contacting the students' teachers directly to facilitate and expedite the evaluation process. Alternative school placement. Parents have shared that their sons are experiencing success in Ms. Lozada's alternative classroom. Because of that success, parents are requesting that students be allowed to remain in placement. Additionally, parents are requesting data on students' placements by race to ensure equality and placement in placement decisions.
Our next steps, as parents, we are requesting a follow-up meeting within the next 5 to 10 business days, that these notes and takeaways be formally shared with the school board, continued communication and collaboration moving forward. As more parents continue to come forward, their concerns be addressed, as well as their children have their PCEAs be removed also. We also hope to identify a time for the next meeting that allows for greater board participation, as well as a time that works for the majority of parents.
In closing, one of our most urgent concerns remains to be the discipline matrix. It must be revised to reflect age-appropriate expectations for middle school students. When discipline does not align with student development, it impacts learning, increased missing instructional time, directly affects the student's success. This is not just about discipline. It is about ensuring that every student has a fair opportunity to learn, grow, and succeed in a supportive, developmental, appropriate environment. Thank you so much for your time and your continued commitment to our students at Anderson Community Schools. Before we move on, I do have Ms. Shide Smith here with us, and she is one of the new parents. We've had several parents reach out to us. She is one whose son is still out of school, and she wanted to tell you a little bit about her story.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll try to make this as quick as possible. Me and my son recently moved up to Anderson, and I moved up here to try to provide a better future and better opportunities for my son. My son also has an IEP, and he has had one since he was very young, very young. My son was also going through a lot of emotional things, puberty, loss of family members and everything. A decision was made for my son to be transitioned from in school to online school. My son is struggling. He needs to be back in school. I don't feel like what was in my son's best interests was at heart. I feel like a path was paved for failure for my son. He's 12 years old and have to depend on a computer to try to learn. No human interactions or anything. I work. I cannot provide that 100% time that my son needs. And I feel like it is not fair. A lot of things was not taken into consideration, and I just want for my son to be back in school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, could you give your contact information to Mr. Meadows back there, and we'll have somebody get with him.
Ms. Seymour, Ms. Shammer. Next up, Mr. Geringer. Hopefully I'm saying that right.
Yes, you said that right. Geringer, it's a German name. It's got the rolling R in it there. I'd like to speak to an opportunity to focus community success through education, and it's more of an editorial or an opinion, and I promise I'll be brief. There are three aspects to it, and one being empowerment, one being a respectful culture, and another being ownership of the outcomes. And looking at the empowerment approach, number one, I think it's important to think about a student in this way. First, to notice the student, make them feel significant by acknowledging the person behind their eyes. And those of you that respect that process of looking someone in the eyes, you can see many times that there's somebody else behind their eyes. That's who is important to connect with. And number two is setting expectations. I'm a big believer that if you set expectations and you do that consistently each day, they will, through time, come through on those expectations. Number three is to let students know that they can succeed if they follow determination, self-discipline each and every day, and that is reinforced. Many of them will succeed. Number four is a focus on high-impact tutoring in small groups daily, not once a week or twice a week, and also with mentoring. Mentoring is so important, somebody to look up to, somebody to aspire to become like. And then in terms of respectful culture, and this applies to everybody, and you made a very excellent statement about respect at the beginning. And also with empowerment, the group gave a lot of comments about empowerment in the presentation before us in the public here. I'd like to say that parents aren't asking to run the schools. They are asking to be heard. Public meetings are supposed to include the public. And when parents and taxpayers take time to show up, they should have a meaningful opportunity to speak. Sometimes it feels like the train, which is actually the community, falls off the rails in some of the details. And so sometimes it's important to bring it back onto the rails. And if people are not allowed to air their concerns in a structured, respectful setting, they carry more frustrations back to their home, where distrust and resentment can grow. A school board should be a reliable place for people to come and openly and honestly and respectfully bring concerns, ask questions, and feel as if they are heard. Listening to the public is not a distraction from the mission of producing good citizens. It is part of it. And good citizens are not created by teaching people to stay quiet when they are frustrated and then carry the frustration back home. Good citizens are created by teaching people how to participate respectfully, speak honestly, and engage with their community. When people feel heard, they carry that home with them also. Home can stop feeling like a battleground and return to a safe environment. Safe homes help create safe neighborhoods. And safe neighborhoods help create a stronger community. Strong communities are also what attract what everybody in this room is after. Fortune 500 companies that have good paying jobs. That brings stability. If somebody is coming to look to move here, first thing they do is look at the performance of Anderson Community Schools. And so the final object is ownership. And this is for each and everybody. The future isn't you or any of you or me. It is the children. So I must ask each and every one of you, what legacy will you leave behind? And I challenge you all to take an oath or a pledge to take ownership of this. What I've done is I've put together those three things: empowerment, respectful culture, and ownership of the outcomes in what's called a Venn diagram. When you go through and you're focusing on some procedures that you want to implement, I don't know if you can see it from here, but those overlap. The three things that I talked about overlap. And if you, when you think about it, considering a project, can land in the middle where all three of those hit, you will be successful. Thank you.
Board, Ms. Dixon didn't sign up. Is there any objection to her asking a question? Hearing none?
Thank you, I appreciate that. Tammy Dixon, Tatum. Going back to the presentation, I was just wondering, in the audit, were parents interviewed? I didn't hear that part of it, so it could have been something that I missed, but when you all were doing your presentation, did you say that parents were interviewed?
Parents were not mentioned as part of the interview process.
Okay, may I ask why? Because they're,
It had nothing to do with the audit. The auditor was brought in,
okay.
and she conducted the audit independently. I mean, we were part of the audit.
Yeah, it's just a question. I'm just curious as to whether or not, because I was curious about the end user, right? So the end user would be the parents. And so I just, out of curiosity, nothing more than curiosity, wanted to know if the parents had a voice. And then particularly, I know you all said that you have like the town hall meetings. And so I thought maybe that might be an opportunity, if there's another audit, to have the parents interviewed at those town halls so that they can have a voice in this. And I mean, kudos to you guys for what you are doing, but I just think that, an added touch to the end user might be helpful. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to ask that question. And then my next question is, have you all finalized the student handbook? And if you have not.
It is on the agenda.
Okay.
For tonight.
Okay, and so I am hopeful that as you guys get ready to finalize this student handbook for the upcoming year, to take into account what the parents are saying with regards to the changes that they would like to see with regards to particularly the discipline matrix, because as they pointed out, 6th through 8th grade, that particular tool is not age appropriate for those group of kiddos for the very reasons that the parents pointed out, which included brain development, which includes puberty and so on and so forth. So that's all I wanted to ask, that you all, one, if you hadn't finalized it, and it sounds like it is on the agenda, if you are going to, again, take into consideration the parents' plea that you all move to a matrix that takes in consideration the age and all those things that they named. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, we'll move on to Anderson Federation of Teachers. President Harrison.
We respectfully state we have nothing at this time. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to board actions. Mr. Elmore with the financial report.
Thank you, Dr. Hill and members of the board. I would like to direct your attention to the financial report located in your board packet for the approval of claims for the month of March. And so these are all the purchases that the school corporation and food service department have made during the last month. They've been properly reviewed and approved by the appropriate management channels, and I submit these for your approval through Resolution R-2026-12.
Thank you. Board, you've received that in your packet. Motion would be in order.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion's been made, seconded. And then by a roll call vote, Ms. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Bookhart?
Aye.
Ms. Collette?
Aye.
Ms. Renz?
Aye.
Aye for me. Mr. Chamberlain?
Aye.
Ayes have it unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we will move on to the acceptance of donated items from Planet Fitness.
Thank you again, Dr. Hill. And so, Board, you should have in front of you a document listing the items that we are, or that I will be asking for your approval tonight at tonight's board meeting for a total number of 44 items that Planet Fitness is willing to donate to us. And so in that document, you will see 5 arch trainers with their estimated value at $10,000, 2 upright bikes at a total value of $1,600, 2 recumbent bikes for an estimated value of $2,000, 2 rowers at an estimated value of $1,200, 28 treadmills at estimated value $39,200, and then 5 ellipticals with an estimated value of $6,000, with a total estimated value of around $60,000 worth of equipment that Planet Fitness is willing to provide to us. And so with that said, I ask for the board's approval of these donated items.
Motion would be in order.
Move to approve.
Motion's been made,
Second.
seconded. Any comments, questions at this time?
Can you make sure we have a written thank you note that goes to the Planet Fitness, please?
Yes, we will absolutely do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. With that, then by roll call vote, Mr. Chamberlain?
Aye.
Aye from me. Ms. Renz?
Aye.
Ms. Collette?
Aye.
Mr. Bookhart? Aye. And Ms. Green?
Aye.
Ayes have it unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we will move on to Dr. Dietz with the Human Resources Report.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board, teachers, administrators, and members of the public attending tonight's meeting. In tonight's Human Resources Report, we have Resolution 2026-13, which is the recommendation of the monthly consent agenda addressing personnel recruitments, leaves of absence, retirements, and resignation agreements.
Thank you, Board. You've received that updated HR report. A motion would be in order.
Move to approve.
Motion's been made,
Second.
seconded. Any comments, questions this time? Hearing none, by roll call vote, Ms. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Bookhart? Aye. Ms. Collette? Aye. Ms. Renz?
Aye.
An aye for me. Mr. Chamberlain?
Aye.
Ayes have it unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Dietz.
Thank you.
Next up, field trips and conference leaves with Ms. McCord.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Members of the board, in your packet, you will find field trips and conference leave requests. All have been properly reviewed, approved, and their funding sources identified. I request your approval of the items in the accompanying resolution R-2026-14.
Thank you. Motion would be in order.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion's been made,
Second.
seconded. Any comments or questions at this time? Hearing none, then again by roll call vote, Mr. Chamberlain?
Aye.
Aye for me. Ms. Renz?
Aye.
Ms. Collette?
Aye.
Mr. Bookhart? Aye. Ms. Green?
Aye.
The ayes have it unanimously. Thank you. And next up, Mr. Scheimer with the student handbook updates.
Good evening, everyone. Board, Dr. Cronk, I appreciate your time. This evening, I'm bringing to you the recommendations from the Students' Rights and Responsibilities Handbook Committee on some slight changes to what we have had in the past and some information on things that have been implemented at the state level as well. The list on the board I will try to go through as quickly as possible, and I've written down exactly what I need to say so I don't waste your time. Please feel free to stop me, though, during this process if you have any specific questions. The first star on the board will be about information sharing of contact info. Outside agencies that request our contact lists would be given the opportunity to take a look at contacting parents and families with information that would support the educational process. Right now, our students are not capable of receiving information from outside entities, but if we gave them this permission, they would be put onto a white list, which would basically allow them to contact those students. So the change in the handbook would only state, the only difference to that area would be that we would add the student email address to that information.
And Mr. Scheimer, that's the ACS email address.
That is correct. Yes, sir. Yes. That is the email that we provide for them. Yes. The second star deals with the modification of the discipline matrix. Due to data review, input from multiple stakeholders, as well as the focus from our TBR training, our committee believes changing the matrix to K6 and then 7-12 from the origin of the K5, 6-12 will improve the learning environment. This change gives more opportunities to implement tools from the TBRI training we are implementing, and we hope to see more student growth in all areas from all students. Our data shows we are much improved. We also understand we have room for improvement. First-time offenders that have an infraction of the matrix that result in a suspension or an possible expulsion are less likely to have a second suspendable offense. 60% of those that get suspended don't get suspended again, which I think is worth touting. The matrix is working very well and is keeping the focus on the classroom learning. Our data shows that we're improving, and I would encourage, as well as the committee, the board to approve that situation. The third star, cell phone matrix. After discussions with the board and a desire to make sure students are in school as often as possible, we've determined that the best process for the first consequence would be different than what we originally recommended. At this point, we are recommending that that first consequence be a one-day in-school suspension in lieu of what we originally talked about with a one-day out-of-school suspension. After that first offense, the second offense would occur if it occurs, and we would go down the path that we already have in place with our cell phone violations. That second occurrence would result in a 3-day out-of-school suspension. The third occurrence would result in a 5-day out-of-school suspension, and the fourth occurrence would be a possible 10-day suspension pending expulsion or change of placement. There will be a major initiative to educate our parents and the community on the new law and the expectations that go along with it. This will happen throughout the remainder of the school year, the summer, and the beginning of the year through class meetings, classroom rule reviews, and parent square. So again, we're communicating all this information out, so we hopefully head off major challenges that could possibly arise due to this. We all are connected to our cell phones. This will be challenging. This first year will not be easy, but it does go along with what the state is requiring of us. Number 4, uniform code. We are only adding one thing to that, and that would be no blankets, which would be involved due to safety concerns and the ability for individuals, students to conceal things. So we'd like to add that as a committee. The 5th star, electronic devices and cell phone, a little bit more on that information. To comply with Senate Enrolled Act 78, we would not allow personal wireless devices developed for communication to be utilized in schools or brought to school. We're waiting on state and/or Department of Education to finalize guidance and recommendations. So as stated in the handbook, this would be subject to change after we get those recommendations from the state. Number 6, the 6th star, chain of command. We believed that we needed to communicate this out to our families as well as we could, and to our stakeholders on who they should be reaching out to and communicating with at each level. This is already part of our website, but with also this being put into our handbook, there's a brief explanation of that chain of command at the building level. So this would allow our families and students to understand who they would talk to that would be next in line. Those are the recommendations from the committee. Can I answer any questions?
Board?
No question, but I just think that we need to make clear that those students who have medical devices linked to a cell phone, such as blood sugars or
Yes,
those kinds of things, they would be exempt from this
Yes, ma'am.
statute?
Yes, and that is mentioned in the statute. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great.
To clarify, I know President Webb and you and Mr. Bonnell and other people have met with the group that spoke earlier. Our registration begins shortly to get the state law things in. This is the reason for passing this tonight. It's the last time the board will meet in public before registration begins. But she is committed, and they have committed to continuing those dialogues and looking at, we can always go back and revise.
Absolutely. Yes, and I would tell you that I thought that meeting that we had was very, very good. It was great to get input from multiple individuals in the community as well as those stakeholders through discussion, and it was very positive. And I think as a corporation, we need to continue that. I think that there always needs to be review of this handbook policy on a yearly basis, and to continue to get input from those stakeholders at the community level. I think it's a good start to what we need to be doing, and we continually need to evaluate, what's in our matrix and what's going on, and what the most recent information that we receive from those people that are above me with intelligence, to say the least, about how we can make sure that we are servicing our students appropriately.
Public comment time is over, Ms. Dixon.
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
Hey,
Two people okay.
Board, is there any objection?
I don't.
I don't.
I don't.
Objection to objection.
I don't.
All right, majority of the board. Ms. Dixon?
I'll hang around.
Let people talk.
And the only thing that I just want to really bring back up, well, a few things. Well, one, I'm in agreement with Scheimer. That meeting went very, very, very well, and more of that should happen. So I'm definitely on board with that. There are only a few things that I want to point out. In that meeting, there was a presentation that Mr. Scheimer had, and in that presentation, he said that defiance was one of the leading causes for disciplinary action. But right now, they can't explain what causes defiance in these children, right? But the more defiant they are, quote unquote, the more punishment that they receive. And if you're punishing these kids for the wrong reasons, they only become more upset and act out even more, right? It doesn't help them. So in some research that I have done, it talks about that these kids from 6th grade up to 8th grade, because if they don't get breaks, if they don't get recess, they become under a lot of stress. And if they're under a lot of stress, they act out, and then they get into trouble. And there's really nothing in place right now that helps them to think things through to a better place. So even that New Beginnings classroom that they go to for like holding, so they get in trouble with the teacher, they go to this New Beginnings classroom, kind of like a holding situation before they get to the dean, and so on and so forth. In that holding, if you will, there's nothing like thinking for a change. There's no one who walks these kids through, hey, do you know why you're here? What happened? What did you do? Do you think that was the best way to, like, there's none of that that's going on. So these kids haven't, quote unquote, learned any lessons, but then as the parents pointed out, they're going through all this brain development, they're going through puberty, they don't get a break, so it's just layer on layer on layer, and this is what's causing them to act out. So to keep the disciplinary matrix the same, and I'm glad you're changing it for 6th graders, but 7th and 8th graders actually fall in that same boat. So you're gonna hold this handbook and hold it for another year. So those kids that are currently in 6th grade, next year they'll be in 7th grade, they'll be under the same handbook, the same rules that got some of them in trouble anyways. And the reason why, again, that they could be getting in trouble is because of defiance, which is according to his presentation, the leading action. But they need a break. They need different ways to help them work through what's going on with them. And so I'm glad that he's going to make the change, but I'm just asking that you guys also look at grades 7th and 8th, because these are the same types of, they're in the same state as 6th graders, and they need that extra consideration so that, this, like he said, it's working, but it could work better, and especially if he doesn't know what's causing the defiance. And we've got long-standing research. Gather his data has been going on for like about 3 years now. But this is long-standing data that says these things need to happen for these kids. And so everybody is here for the success of the kids. I just think, along with the parents, that these kids will be more successful if the matrix tool is just changed for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade versus just 6th grade. So that's what I wanted to point out, because we're all here trying to help these kids be successful, and I think this is what will help make them successful. And I get you're on these timelines to get this book printed, but that timeline to get these books printed, is that in the best interest of the kids? Can you take another moment to consider the extra stuff that's on the table right now, and even if it's just another day, just make that correction, and then, you know, you can revisit things at next year. But I think this year, for the upcoming book, I think that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade should still be under consideration for this matrix change. Thank you.
As I stated before, Ms. Webb is committed to, President Webb is committed to continuing to work with the appropriate personnel to look at this. This, you don't have to answer to this, just for your information, that they can come back and we can talk to parents if we need to change the discipline matrix at some point and explain to them that it has been changed, do the appropriate messaging to get that out there if it changes at some point before the next year.
Right, well, that's what I'm just saying. Like, so basically, we're pushing them potentially into harm's way, because if we've got some information up right now up front, and we know, and again, this is long-standing data. There was articles that the board received that talked about this long-standing data with regards to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So you know, if you read the article, what we're speaking about. And to go ahead and push this thing forward without true consideration of, like I said, long-term science, that's technically kind of setting these kids up for some failures, especially with the 6th graders who have now gotten in trouble under this matrix. Now they're going to be 7th graders next year, and they're going to be under the same tool, under the same matrix. So that's the part that I'm asking you to consider, and it's just a simple, let's try. If you can try 6th grade being under, going back to the kindergarten model, if you will, then why not try 6th, 7th, and 8th grade under the same elementary model that you currently have? You don't have to create anything new. There's technically still elementary kids. So you just extend it from 5th grade all the way up to 8th grade, meaning just take it back to what it once was, and then leave 7th through 12th graders under this new matrix that they already have. And again, this is information that you guys have already. So I'm just asking, again, for the parents' sake and for the sake of all the kids, please don't set them up for failure that way. It's just a stroke of a pen to say, yes, we will allow 6th, 7th, and 8th grader to stay under the elementary model.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Scheimer, when is this, the handbook going to print?
Well, the issue isn't actually the print. The issue is actually registration. That starts on Thursday.
Okay.
So the goal is to have something in place and make sure that we have the availability there so parents can sign off on that said handbook. Just a quick review on that situation too, with the discussions going on with the matrix. I have a lot of data, and the reason that the committee supports this move to 6th grade as well as continuing 7 through 12 is that data that shows we've got a reduction of referrals in the last 12 months of 35%. We have the reduction of suspensions as well as expulsions down 7%. And like I said earlier, when you look at those individuals that get that first occurrence where they do get suspended, 60% of those individuals don't have a second occurrence of that. So again, I would encourage you to go with that recommendation from that committee that states we would like to see these things that were just mentioned implemented and move forward. So
if they're not implemented, what kind of effect will that have on the process going forward?
Well, if they're not implemented, it's going to make things extremely challenging for registration. But what I would say is I would echo what Dr. Hill said, that we can go back and make that adjustment because of the verbiage that's in the handbook. So if we have a discussion and that's something that we want to do, we convene our committee and discuss those scenarios, the verbiage that will be in the handbook does allow us to do that.
But if we can avoid this before we even go into it, why not? You know, I mean, if it's not of that monumental importance, you know.
I believe that it is, and I believe that the recommendations from the committee are the approach to take. I believe that having that documentation in that handbook at registration is something that we definitely want to do, so those families can sign off on that information.
Particularly with the cell phone changes, those need to be in that handbook when they, this Thursday.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I would agree.
The board can approve this tonight and then make a commitment to revisit it in May if they so choose.
Yeah, because I tell you, the cell phone thing, that's a state. You know, we have to do that because the state says it. I think it's.
Mr. Scheimer?
Yes, ma'am.
I understand the expediency because of registration, but I have a question and a comment.
Sure.
Under what we would potentially be approving tonight, the change to the 1 day does not say in school, it still says 1 day suspension. Can that be clarified?
It should be changed, I'm sorry. That most recent adjustment to that handbook, yes, it can be clarified, there's no problem. I thought that adjustment had already been made, and I apologize that that's
Mine
not in
just
your
says
printed
1
version.
day suspension.
Yeah, it should say 1 day ISS.
It does not.
And I apologize, yeah, we definitely will make that move. That is in the documentation that I reviewed before the meeting, and I apologize you don't have that most current copy.
I'm just looking at what I got handed in our board packet.
Yeah, okay, understood.
So it may have already been revised.
yes,
it just,
ma'am.
I
Yeah.
didn't get the updated copy.
And I apologize, yes.
Going back to understanding the expediency for registration and the cell phone issue, I think that's critically important to get out to parents. I would like to see this board make a commitment to, if the handbook is passed this evening, to make a commitment to the people who have stood up and spoken to work together with the board, with Mr. Scheimer, to, over the next couple of months, to have some meetings to talk through Mr. Scheimer's data, to talk through Ms. Dixon Tatum's data, to talk with some of the parents. And I don't think this is something, while I appreciate your urgency, Ms. Tatum, of let's just move it from 7 to 8, I think there's a lot more discussion to go into this, and if we want to make significant changes in May, June, July before the start of the next year, I think there's some serious conversations that need to go on to include everybody's comments and data, and at the end of the day, put together this summer, early summer, a document that is community supported, ACS supported, school board supported. We're never going to agree on everything, but I think we can come a little closer than we are.
Sure.
And one last thing, and I'll be quiet. Thank you for what you said. However, if you might consider one more thing, because that cell phone is an urgency, it's a policy that it sounds like it's from the state, kind of a standalone thing. Is it possible that the parents just sign off on that part? Like, just put that on one sheet and say cell phone policy, this will be in the new student handbook, and you give those rules, and you let the parents sign off on that part of the cell phone part of it, and then that would give us an ample opportunity, as what you're saying, to come back and revisit the rest of the handbook.
I appreciate where you're coming from, and I understand that, and I agree with a good part of that, but what we're talking about really is the discipline matrix of the handbook, and there's so much more in the handbook that I think those parents need. And I think if we can agree to talk about the discipline matrix together as a board, with the community, with you, with Mr. Scheimer, I think the parents could sign off on the handbook that they've received it, because there's so much more in there than just the cell phone, that I think they need to know and see and be able to read while we're working on the discipline matrix, if that would be fair to everyone.
So this is kind of a tentative handbook before the final is printed out the rest of this year. Like, how does what you're saying work? I just want to make sure I'm not pulling the tail.
The handbook could be approved and signed off by parents, but there is language within it that allows us to come back and revisit it as a board. So if adjustment needs to be made, and which is what I was saying earlier, can be communicated out if there is a change made back out to parents and so that they understand what is being changed specifically.
And in that rule, if there's any changes, then that rule would still be implemented in this upcoming year, or would it have to wait the following?
It would be implemented as soon as the board approved it.
I want to say one more thing here, too. I taught middle school for 27 years. And at one point, I had 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. From 6th grade to 7th grade, sometimes there's a monumental difference in these kids. And to have a matrix that's going to be for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, it'll be like having a kid. How, are you 12 years old when you're 6th grade? 11, 12. So let's say you have a kid that's in 6th grade and the one that's in 8th grade. Are you going to treat them the same as far as their discipline and behavior? Now, the more I looked at this, really, I think it's kind of unreasonable, you know. And to me, whenever you set policies and procedures, there are two things you need to keep in mind. First of all, is it reasonable? Which means, is it something they can do? Secondly, is it attainable? Do they have enough time to get it done in? You know, I have kids sometimes in 8th grade, by the time they graduate as seniors, I don't even recognize them. So that's not only physically, but also mentally, emotionally, behaviorally, and so forth. I mean, I definitely see the urgency of passing the cell phone thing. I don't see the big urgency in having to pass this matrix where, like, if you're this and that and the other. And that's coming from someone, I tell you, you know, you won't find a better, a stronger person that wants you to enforce the rules than I am. When's the last time you guys taught 6th, 7th, and 8th graders? Had to deal with them. I mean, they're off the chain here, you know, you understand that. You don't want to treat a 6th grader like an 8th grader, and sometimes a 6th grader like a 7th grader. Do what? Yeah. But that's the way the matrix is set up. I don't, you know, I have difficulty with that, with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, like, because 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, they're still technically like elementary kids. So I'm saying keep the discipline matrix from kindergarten up to 8th grade. Obviously, there's slight variances in there, but for instance, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, they're characterized with horseplay, right? Little boys are bumping up against one another. That's part of their development. And if they do it now, they get suspended. And I'm talking, you know, 3, 5, 10, 15 days. Now they're expecting expulsion. And kids horseplay. And they don't have recess and stuff now because, like, when we used to be able to run outside and play, we're running all around on monkey bars and all kinds of stuff, we were able to burn out that energy. Now these kids are expected to sit still all day long. I mean, even going to work. Every so many hours, you have a break. Actually, every 2 hours, you get a break. You get a 15-minute break, you get a 30-minute break, you get another 15-minute break within an 8-hour window. These kids, they get to run around and play to let off that energy. They don't. And the research says, long-standing, when they don't have that opportunity, they become defiant. They act out. And that's why you said defiance is the #1 action leading these kids to disciplinary act. They're naturally trying to break free.
Thank you, Ms. Tatum.
Thank you.
Board will call for the question on the handbook. Motion would be in order to adopt the handbook.
With the possibility of changes.
That verbiage is in there, Mr. Bookhart. Thank you.
I'm just asking.
Yes.
Move to approve.
No hostility, Mr. Bookhart, just repeating.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded by roll call vote. Ms. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Bookhart?
Nay.
Ms. Collette?
Aye.
Ms. Renz?
Aye.
Aye for me. Mr. Chamberlain?
Aye, with the possibility of changes, which is in the,
5-1. Motion passes. Handbook is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Schreimer. Do we have other business before the board? Hearing none.
Yeah, well, hang on. I would like to go back to the subject of this handbook, and because we did approve it tonight, we also made a commitment that we would let the public be heard, and we would set meetings with Mr. Scheimer. So I would like to have the board look at some, I know our president isn't here, so when Mandy's better, I would like the board to look at dates to put together to meet with the public, to meet with Mr. Scheimer. It can be two of us, all of us, whoever wants to.
Again, as I stated before, Ms. Webb, in discussions with the board, has told us that she's committed to ongoing meetings and the process of this to look at all possible avenues. So I think she already has that in mind, is what I'm saying, Ms. Collette.
Okay.
So as of right now, the board, the handbook will be printed as is?
Yes, but not printed. It
won't be printed. It's going to be online. It won't be printed until later on in the summer. So this is just for the online registration that we're doing.
And if Ms. Dixon Tatum would send us the research articles that you have, so we have that to read. And if you sent them again, if you've already sent them, please resend them so we can take a look at them, please.
Thank you. If no other business before the board, this meeting is adjourned. Everybody have safe travels home. Thank you.